I wanted to reach out here because I feel like I've been in a situation that many people are currently in. If you are studying for the CFP exam right now and you're feeling overwhelmed, discouraged, or questioning whether you're doing this right, I want to start by saying you are not alone. I've worked with CFP candidates, I've lived this exam myself, and I pay very close attention to the trends. Now that I'm on the other side, I've it's easier to look at it more objectively and take my experience and what I'm seeing from everybody else and kind of consolidate and put things in a different perspective. And what I'm seeing right now is so important. And honestly, it's pretty validating. So the fact is that no one usually talks about this part of the exam. And there's a few things that stand out to me. We have more tools, more platforms, more question banks, more AI support than we have ever had before. And yet, for the first time, pass rates are lower than they've been in a while. At the same time, repeat test takers are actually doing better, often because they come back realizing after not having passed the first time, I can't study the same way again. Or if they are like myself, the insanity continues the second time, and then finally you run into a brick wall and you say, okay, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So, this tells me a few things that are pretty important. One, this isn't just about effort, it's about how we are preparing. So, let that sink in for a second. It is how you are preparing. Working more does not necessarily get you better results. So these numbers are telling me one, reflecting on the trends and again, my own experience. So this is just me speaking from experience and what I'm seeing. I think what is happening, and I could be totally wrong, but this is just coming from my perspective. Many candidates are unintentionally studying passively. So let me explain to you what that means in my eyes. They're watching videos. They are rereading their notes over and over again. They're relying on tools, heavily, maybe AI, to explain concepts. And here's the truth that no one really wants to say out loud. AI and ChatGPT cannot help you pass this exam on their own. And so, yes, they can explain concepts, but they cannot teach things such as test taking skills and judgment, reading comprehension under pressure, or how to think 5 layers deep when every answer feels right. Or I don't know if anybody has experienced this. I, at points, would be in the exam reading, and I'm like, I have studied hours and hours and hours, and I feel like I'm reading another language, which again, partially was reading comprehension, anxiety, all of the above. This exam, though, is not testing knowledge alone. And so, for those that have been awesome test takers, just relying on that isn't enough. There's just a lot of different moving pieces. And so, it's the testing is also how to make decisions when you're not quite certain on an answer. And so I want to dive in a little bit to how should you be studying? Now, again, it's totally different for everyone. I don't think there's one perfect review course out there, but I do think that people need to know how they receive and process information personally because everybody does it different. There's not one perfect path for every individual out there. I wish I could say, here's the rule book, do exactly this, and you will pass. That's not how this works, unfortunately. So the real question becomes how should you be preparing? And knowing what I know now, here's what I would do differently and what I encourage candidates to think about. What I do differently is I'd look at my study structure. First, my study routine would looked very different the third time than it did the first or second time. It was very hard for me to kind of take this in at first, but I love to focus on, okay, if I check off the box and I do, 2 hours of reading, an hour of questions, blah, 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 then I'm there. Some days it may only take me that long, but some days it didn't. And so instead, at least for me on the third attempt, I focused more on the tasks, not just the amount of time I was studying. So instead of saying I studied for 3 hours, that wasn't quite cutting it because was I actually reviewing questions and why I missed them? Could I articulate why I got answers wrong? Was it a misread? Was it I didn't know the information? Was it, the concept I was mixing up with something else? And could I explain the concept out loud without my notes? That was a game changer. I focused so much on trying to memorize, 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 but what I realized is I wasn't understanding it to its core. And so that for my third time, like working with a tutor who pulled that out of me and made me actually understand everything, was essential. Time spent does not equal progress made. And that I want to hit home because I always thought the more hours I'm studying, the more hours I'm studying, the better I'm going to do. That wasn't the case for me. I did need to study a lot, a lot, a lot. However, for me, if I study 2 hours in the morning versus, 4 or 5 hours at night, I might still get the same amount accomplished or at least comprehend that much. So that's another piece. Another thing is rest and burnout. Oh, if you've taken this exam once, or if you're in the process of studying, you may have felt burnt out at some point along the way. This is huge. It wasn't until my third attempt that I finally took somebody's advice. Paul, who I was working with as a tutor, said, you have to take one day off every single week. Okay, let's be honest, I didn't do it right away. As soon as I finally did it, it was life changing. I have three children under the age of 10, three active boys. They were younger at the time of the exam. I have a husband that works and travels a lot. I work. So there's a ton of juggling pieces. And I kept saying, there's no way I can take a full day off. There's just not enough time in the week. However, I'm going to share a little secret. When you take that one day off, for me, it was usually Sundays. I would be done by 2 o'clock on Saturdays, and I was not allowed, that's how I quoted it to, or coded it to myself. I was not allowed to pick up my material until Monday morning. Now, what did that do? At first, it was very uncomfortable and very awkward. However, by the second or third week of doing that, I realized that I was actually present for my family from Saturday until Monday morning and didn't feel guilty about not studying. The first two attempts, if I wasn't studying, I was always worrying and thinking about, oh, I should be studying. What does that do? Completely empties your tank. It makes you burn out many, or, at least for me, multiple times throughout the process. And I never fully filled my gas tank so that I could hit the ground running at the beginning of the week. And this is going to sound crazy, but on Monday mornings, I would actually be excited to open my books again because I'm like, okay, let's go. And that hands down was probably one of the biggest changes because burnout kills your retention. Guilt studying 7 days a week does not make you disciplined. It makes you exhausted and you'll hit a wall. Cannot stress that enough. Your brain needs rest to actually integrate what you're learning and to soak in, for the sponge to absorb it all so that you can then let it marinate and then apply it later on. Third, I would work with somebody who teaches you how to take this exam, not just the content. The content, 100% you need to know. It is absolutely essential. But reading comprehension, identifying what the question is really asking, eliminating answers strategically, those skills matter just as much as knowing the rules. There are four options for answers on this exam. We all know that. You read it, a question, there's A, B, C, D. If you look at that and you can't eliminate any, you're screwed. Not really, but I mean, you could be. So, what I would suggest is you need to learn how to take the test so you can start eliminating. So, at least you get it down to two answers. And then I would say, finally, the missing piece for a lot of people is the support. And I could not have gotten through this alone. It's probably the most important thing. Not just support from family members, friends, work, although that does matter. It is very, very important to have that as well. I mean people who understand this exam. If you're having a hard time studying, you go to your significant other, your parents, your spouse, whoever, your boss, and you're like, oh, this is so hard. They hate seeing you in pain and struggling. And so, although they might try to be supportive, it may not be what you actually need for that, oomph and support to get through it. So when I say people who understand this exam, people who can say, yes, this is the hard part, you're not imagining it. Like you're in the trenches, this part sucks, but there is a light. And instead of trying to make you feel better of like, oh, it's okay, because you don't need that when you're stressed. Like you need the real, for most people at least, honesty of I was there too, I get it. Here are some strategies that I tried. Here's some strategies that might work for you because it's different for everybody. You have a team behind you who can support you and pull you through this. The CFP journey can feel incredibly isolating, especially if you're balancing work, family, and life on top of studying. It can also feel isolating if you've taken it and you have not passed because you see all the celebration of the people that are passing, and it can feel like you are the only one in the world. I am telling you, that is not the case. So I need you to hear me when I say, slow down, take a breath. If you're listening to this and you are feeling behind, discouraged, or doubting yourself, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not behind. You are not failing, and you are not alone. Sometimes passing this exam isn't about trying harder. It's about changing your strategy and getting the support that you need. Reach out, ask for help, adjust your approach. You don't have to carry this by yourself. If this resonates with you at all, please know that you are not weak for needing support. You're actually smart for seeking it. So if you have any questions, if you'd want to reach out, I'm more than happy. My goal is to help as many people pass this exam as humanly possible. I know how it feels in the trenches, and I want to help you get to the other side. All right. Hope this was helpful. Have a great day.